Nibiwa bohandaya Akimisque nibiwa bo Hiya, 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 hey Hiya, 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 ho Nibiwa bohandaya Akimisque nibiwa bo Hiya, 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 hey Hiya, 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 ho Nibiwa bohandaya Akimisque nibiwa bo Hiya, 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 hey Hiya, 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 ho
People from the outside, many really still don't know the story. Many towns they've never heard of Ringwood because we were written off and the story was going to be buried so deep that no one 1,000 years from now would never have known. And again, we have to start the motion again. We have to start rolling all over again. Collecting more people, educating more people.
It's always a struggle to show our people, the red road and to follow a cultural way, because for our core community in Ringwood, that's been stripped away. We've lost that from the loss of our elders. Looked around one day and there was no elders, there was no old people. And I remember when I was little that there was old people and there was older people. And those older people are what we lost first.
I went to a powwow for the Ramapo, and I met Chief Mann, and I met some of the elders. And they said, you guys are up there in environmental medicine. What can you do to help us? We live on a Superfund site. Our children are growing up with contamination nearby. Our adults are sick. Our lifespan is reduced. What can you do to help? Can you do something? We found out that they had a lot of environmental issues and that they had an increase in some diseases above what's natural. Lots of diabetes, lots of cardiovascular disease, lots of bronchitis, lots of hypertension. They wanted to know if their land was contaminated. So we moved on with the help of Dennis DeFries and as a citizen scientist and many other Turtle Clan members who acted as citizen scientists with us and our graduate students and went out and they collected air and they collected soil, fish samples to see whether the ponds that they were fishing in, the fish were contaminated because then they eat it. We checked the plants to see what was growing in the area because plants can concentrate chemicals and especially metals. And so we're in the process of testing that. But what we did test and what we did analyze is the soil around their local church. And the soil around their local church came up in some places with higher lead and higher arsenic. And then we tested the water inside their local church and found that there were chemicals there as well. And there was elevated lead. it's important to know that more than 70% of all Native Americans throughout the country live 3 miles or less from a wasteland or from a Superfund site. It's incredible that these peoples who started this country, who were here originally, are the ones now who have to bear the inequitable burden of living near chemicals that can harm them, can injure them, and can kill them.
It was never anything else that beat us. It was poison that beat us. There was nothing else. Nothing else was going to beat us because of our way of life, because of our teachings from the past. We were going to be the future. But something came after us from Ford Motor that we couldn't beat, and that was the poisons. They didn't do it in the night. They didn't do it in the night. They did it in the daytime. So right up to our POTUS. They're all just as guilty. Ford owns them all, but we can't never give up. We can't never give up until the last one of us standing. And a unity that we've started to, over the decades, acquire from centuries ago, it's coming back in a circle. Is it the beginning of the pollution to the Wanacue Reservoir? Is it the end? Is it midway? Not even the state and federal government really want to deal with this. My guess is because maybe of the magnitude of what the state government, the federal government, the governor's office, the senators, the president's office. I'm sure they're all aware of the possible, probable disaster that started over 50 some years ago. And it was sort of a little shocker that when they were reading it on the news that Ringwood wasn't mentioned, given that it's the only Superfund site ever to be delisted and relisted. And there was no mention. And again, I think it was part of a design, not a mistake, because I think Ringwood it's more than a hot potato, it's a poison potato. And then when they found the 1,4-dioxane, which also it's documents on state and federal documents, that the numbers were so high up in the Peters Mine area that it was unbelievable. Years later, you would get it in a Ringwood State Park where thousands of people has fished over the years, thousands of children have fished over the years. And in a Wanacue Reservoir, you find it 8 miles downstream. And basically the EPA is saying, well, somebody probably took a bottle of shampoo up in the area and dumped it in the water, and that's what happened. This is what one of the top EPA people, the statement he made in a meeting that we were at. So, again, I think the governor and should be ashamed of himself in his office, and the Highlands Council should be ashamed because it is in the Highlands region, and we weren't left out by mistake. It was by design, because we're never going to get to the bottom of the poison, because all government agencies aren't going to allow that, because Ford Motor still calls the shots. Unfortunately, we will still continue to fight. We'll still continue to battle. But we need those even way above us to step up and stand their grounds and hold Ford Motor accountable. We can all agree, you can't save us. We can agree. But you can save the children of the future. You know, you can save the children downstream. You know, you can save unborn children that will be born into drinking poisoned water or a poisoned environment. But until more and more towns, more and more places begin to say, you know what, we're part of it. They're our neighbors. Or start figuring out, maybe it wasn't just them poison. and getting after the government, holding them accountable for their failure. And someone should be going after the governor and asking the question of, you wrote this, but how is Ringwood not in it? How is Ringwood not a part of it? He needs to be called out on this, and, some of our Congress people need to be called out on it. While they're, having a good day, talking on the news, they're all shaking hands and hugging and everything. And the people most affected back up in the area, there's no mention.
If we don't respect nature, nature's not going to respect us. And let's face it, that's what's happening here, is that nature's kicking back, saying, this is crazy. This is insanity. So, as I say, I don't know what the answer is to this. All we can do really is to try to spread the word, is to keep educating people, let more and more people realize. And let's face it, there's a lot of people out there that don't even know that their water is poisoned as much as your water is poisoned. And it's spreading. And this is the kind of education I think we need to be using, is letting people know you're in danger. Not just this little group of people here, you're in danger. And that's the only way I think we're going to get any kind of responses, really.
To me, we are the seed. The greatest seed known is our Mother Earth. We are just her babies. And to me, the importance of the seed itself is that the seed is the gift of life, or the seed can also be the gift of death. And what has been done in the community, I'm not sure if we have survived. I don't know if we have survived, because people are still getting sick. I think as long as people are there, they'll always get sick, because basically the elders are gone. So our main roots, our main seeds are gone for our people.
So that's that continued elder knowledge. And that's many of our people, many of our generations now have lost that. We have not gone back to our elders and asked that information. So a lot of our elders, and this was like predicted, a lot of our elders are waiting for us to come back and ask for that information. But now with our people over here, our elders are dead. We don't have that. So now we have to go out to Wisconsin and Stockbridge and ask the elders that are living now. But they're further removed from the original elders. It's really messed up. So my elders are up there, right? So then you have the few of us that are connected in that way.
The lesson for us and our family will be, for its survival, will just be to be us and to keep on being us, teaching the kids to be us, and going to our cousins for more wisdom to survive, so we can keep that going for 7 generations. And actually living in balance always is a kind of key to survival.
If you sit there long enough, you can get the answer to everything in life just by watching how nature reacts and interacts with one another, the animals, the weather, all sorts of things, even the water. There's lessons in everything. And if you can really, really look into all of that, you already know what life has to offer in each situation. So it's very hard to explain that. And I don't know if you could understand that. But there's a philosophy in the spiritual world that really just is all about everybody's world together. It's just that some people choose to develop that side more, and other people tend not to believe in it.
For me, I think of John Mohawk's interpretation of the Sky Woman story. Alicia Cook, the medicine woman who's our close friend up in Akwesasne, she tells this story and attributes John Mohawk for this version, that when Sky Woman fell from the sky, she did not fall unequipped. She had with her a pouch, and in it were the seeds of the three sisters. So she was carrying seeds with her from the very beginning. From the earliest of the creation stories, we find that seed plays a significant role, that the idea of the continuance of life and rebirth is all a part of what seed means.
We know that our life depends on this seed. So it's a symbiotic relationship. That seed is sacrificing its life for us. We know that. We know we're going to get that harvest from that seed, and that seed is going to be done. But that seed will develop more seeds, and that life will live on for the next generation and for our next generation. So there's that relationship that is so necessary to, I feel, a really successful crop.
We won't know if the Ramapo will continue to survive, but through our actions and our deeds and creation of the Muncie Three Sisters Medicinal Farm to strive for food sovereignty for our people, for some economic growth for our people, education culturally and otherwise. Those seeds of hope have been planted, and the only thing we can do is to keep remembering that every time we offer up a prayer, that those prayers will always be answered. These little beautiful things are born into the world, and just like a seed that grows in the earth, we do too. And, we're supposed to come into the earth and be filled with that joy and happiness, and remember our humility, right? And that we're all a gift, and the same thing with those seeds. Muncie Three Sisters Medicinal Farm is not just about growing food, but it's also about bringing back our cultural traditions, the way that we would grow the three sisters plus the little brother that no one talks about, the sweet potato. And understanding that intricate relationship between, our Mother Earth and the soil and the water and the corn that grows up, and it has to be that sturdy one that's going to carry, give something for those beans to wrap around and hold firm to the shade of the leaves from both of them to help encourage, the growth of the squash beneath them, and the nutrients that go back into the earth from those things, which in turn helps the little brother, the sweet potato, to grow. And so by creating this space, by bringing back a part of our cultural way of life, which is, farming, for our people to understand that connection in that spiritual way, the plants and Mother Earth, not just as a food source, but also as a medicinal source.
If you take our Indigenous people, the Muncie people in this area, we had food specific to this area that our people lived with and from and off of, and it was a symbiotic relationship. You remove that natural symbiotic relationship and those diets, and I think that there's a lot of breakdown that happens. And not only I think it's a nutritional deficiencies that happen, but I think it's the spiritual as well. And I think, again, the two go together, and that would be the land, and it would be the spiritual part of the land and growing the food from the land. We basically started the farm because them not being able to practice hunting on the land or growing their own food, which we were used to doing, and that sense of community, which food and growing food together and sitting down at the dinner table is a sense of community. And again, this farm is just that. We wanted to bring community back. Even my kids don't have a sense of community like we had a sense of community. Just within a generation, we've lost that. And we've lost, growing our gardens and sharing our food with people in the community, much like I did when I was a child. That was part of my job, is tending to the garden and then giving it to the elders, even though they weren't really our family, but they were part of the community family.
We want to put ourselves back into that balance culturally by understanding that if we eat certain greens, if we eat certain root vegetables, and those minerals that are provided for us by Mother Earth, or that are part of that, with that natural cultural way of growing things, can nurture our bodies, where we don't have to have a pill for all those different things. It's not to say that modern medicine doesn't have any value to it. It's just to say that if we can look at the things that we can do medicinally and culturally to help heal ourselves individually, that we should really do that. Allowing for our people to just come and be, in a space where they don't have to feel threatened or not wanted, or all of those other things like that.
We are part of those, convenient consumers that gave up everything for convenience, and now we just go and buy it, and we don't do anything independently for ourselves. And so now we are totally dependent on grocery stores and everything else for this, instead of being dependent on ourselves or self-sufficient. And so this farm is that on many levels, creating good nutrition for our people, but also the people in the community that can't afford things, because organic food is very expensive.
Mutual aid, right, is really about communities building better connections to meet each other's needs, without having to appeal to, the state or nonprofits, where, you have to jump through a lot of hoops or wait a long period of time, or, you get maybe some sort of aid that isn't exactly what you're looking for. And, you're just sort of not treated as an individual in some of these instances. And I think this brings a lot of resiliency, particularly in times of crisis. And this is a lot of what mutual aid is about. In times of crisis, whether it's flood or fire or something else, you can't always appeal to authorities or people that come out and save you, because they're busy saving lots of people. And sometimes it requires your neighbors, and it requires people who you don't ordinarily communicate with to come together. And once we connected, we were able to hear about what some of their issues were. And some of it was food insecurity, and some of it was, environmental and health. And in doing a lot of mutual aid work, our group first assessed if, we could really commit to this project. We knew that it'd be super important that if we got involved, that we had to really be committed, because we know that Indigenous communities have just been promised so much, and then people get their photo ops and then leave. And we wanted to make sure that that's not what we did. So pretty much every week For the last year and a half, we've been out here at the farm or in Ringwood, supporting in whatever projects that they have, just providing labor, sending volunteers.
What I'm assuming is that this place is, I would say, a very spiritually well-balanced area simply because of what I'm seeing already growing here. So I think they've found themselves a good place to start the farming. So obviously they have big plans for growing various crops here. They've just started in the simple way with the three sisters, as I have noticed, with the corn and the squash and the beans and so on. But I see it expanding in many directions. He's even talking about growing hemp for creating THC, which is, I think, another necessary thing in this day and age. If you look at the history of the Native Americans who have had a really, really bad deal at the hands of Europeans, and it is really time that this balance was redressed. It's time that they were given back much of the things that were taken from them. And if we can support them financially, well, then that's wonderful. But I think it should be within all our consciousness to be helping one another as much as we can. And as I say, the people that originally started this country and were living here happily when the Europeans first arrived, have had a bad deal, and they really need to have everything redressed.
We have taken this opportunity for universities and colleges that come here for a specific reason, and we've taken and changed and turned the table, right? We pulled you into our world. We pulled you in and sucked you in and said, listen, this is what's been done to us. Would you allow this to happen to yourself or your children? We are affecting change for ourselves by giving the opportunities that were provided to us by universities coming in to do projects that involve underprivileged communities and environmentalism, right? And racism and all these things. We've taken the opportunity because we are very smart human beings, right? And we've taken that situation and turned it around, right? And we find the people that we can put our trust into, that we believe in, that will do the right thing.
I've had half a dozen surgeries, 6 surgeries over the course of a number of years as a result of contamination from the Ford Motor Company lead paint that's in our watershed. And with each experience, it runs deeper into my soul what is going on here. And that is that we're part of a big extended family, and thank God, a family rooted in Indigenes, because without that, I think we'd be entirely lost. I don't think we survive. I don't think we as a society, as a republic, as a nation, what have you, I don't think we survive if we cannot engage that which is indigenous in our world before we destroy it. And we are on track, and you are right. We are on track to destroy that which is indigenous in our world. It's kept me alive. My prayers with Creator, my dialogue with Creator, and my sense of animal speak, that's kept me alive. Technical medicine has also kept me alive, but it has been a marriage between the two. You have to bring them together. So for me, survival is understanding and accepting ways of being that might be beyond your paradigm, might be beyond your education, but that's because we're never educated enough. We can always reach beyond that. And we need to facilitate our understanding. We need to facilitate that we don't know it all, we never will, but as long as we're open to learning, particularly from my point of view, indigenous learning, we can do this.
The medicinal part of the farm is just about whole health and healing. And so with that being said, we'd like to see when people come here that hopefully they feel that this is their community, whether they come from a different community, now they're in this community, and this community is about nurturing and healing. And that happens to many different people on many different levels. And people come here not knowing what type of healing they might be needing or they might end up getting. But eventually, it seems like everybody gets just what they need in their own way.
You know, growing up in New Jersey, in grammar school, we all did like a unit on our native people here in New Jersey. And we made dioramas of longhouses and things like that. And nobody ever said, by the way, there are still Native Americans living here in New Jersey. And, you know, you could meet some of them. Everything was in the past. So for me, it's been very transformative to be part of this in the now, connecting to the earth in an Indigenous way, which I think is really important right now. With everything happening with climate change and overdevelopment, we've lost our connection to the land, and we need to get back to Indigenous life ways. I think is really the only way we can fight climate change, basically.
And I think there's a big disconnect with nature. And so if we really look back at history, we all were indigenous to somewhere. We all had to live off of the land. And the land was our law, the law of nature. And so we did not control nature. Nature basically controlled us or showed us how to live. You know, this is how we should live. We should live with nature, a symbiotic relationship. You know, there are certain things that you do and you only do in little increments. If we're talking about how it was done back in the day, you know, the seeds were sowed by hand. Everything was done by hand. There was that connection and hopefully good intention, because nobody wants to plant seed and say, this isn't going to grow, you know. You put your best intentions into that, because why? What speaks true to you? What rings true to you? And then that's the path that you should proceed with for that time.
The millennials are the future. And without you guys, there is no future. Our time is come and gone. You guys are the future. It's up to you guys to spread the word to the world, because the young will listen to the young. And again, I can't stress it enough. You guys are the future, not your moms, not your dads, not your grandparents. You guys are the future for the future. And so everyone that you reach out to, and don't get discouraged if you talk about it to a friend who has no interest. You can't let that ever discourage you, because if you have 3 friends and 1 listens, you've already started, because that one who listened may have 3 or 4 friends. Maybe only 1 will listen.
I'm going to be positive about a negative. Well, the great white patriarchal hierarchy that has been governing us so fiercely is faltering. It's collapsing. It's weakening. It's like an old fighter starting to lose its punch. But you know, an old fighter, before they finally go down, they fight the hardest. And I think that's what's happening. We feel that on a federal level, and we're starting to see it with the denial on the state level. But they're losing, and they know it. And I think that's why the racism on the federal level is so blatant. And on the state level, with a lot of our senators, we're seeing blatant racism. It's not like they're trying to hide it anymore.
No.
And I think they're aware, they're down for the count. Now, the positive thing is we need to be ready. And I think to a large degree, many of us are. I think we're sort of like what Paul Hawkins talks about in Blessed Unrest, his wonderful work, that there is this massive number of movements, all in response to their particular regions and their particular dilemmas, but they're all doing the same thing. They're all dealing with truth, and they're dealing with the idea of galvanizing their forces so they can have a citizen science response to the contamination and a good social response to the social unrest that's emerging within their communities. You know, there was diversity, and in diversity, there's this galvanization of strength that you can't beat. Oh yeah, you can shoot it, you can kill it down, you can whip it, but it'll keep coming back at you. And my gut feeling is the great, again, I'll be race oriented and say that the great white father figurehead of this massive nation state is weakening a lot. We need just to continue our work on our local and regional levels. And we need to recognize our brothers and our sisters in all of their battles and understand that all of these battles connect and support one another. And if we can do that, and I think we are, especially when you say everybody's water is contaminated, once you realize the relationship that we all have, I think we start to move into the position of having the authority from the ground up. And in that, I think we start to move toward a republic that can function in a democratic way. That's my hope. That's what I feel.
That's a part of a leader. Whenever you're called, you have to go. You have to go. Because people out there, they're waiting. Because we need more and more, we need millions. Because not only in Upper Ringwood we're finding, because there's many Superfund sites, there's many other places where this has been done. But we have to become one. Every community, every town, every neighborhood where good and bad has happened. We all have to become one for the future, for the environment, because there's no two planets, there's one. You know, no matter what's going on in other places, we all have a part and a role for the future. Because if we don't, we already know we don't have one, but it's okay. But the children deserve to have one. Every other generation beyond deserves to have one. Natives, non-natives, all has a right. So again, today, I guess we're starting again for the future. And that's about all I can say. Thanks.
I'd like to charge you with something. You're inheriting what we're working on. And I want you to take from us the best that we can do, but also know that it doesn't always work and that we make lots of mistakes along the way as well. You're going to have to do this eventually without us. God willing, you'll all be in another place when we've moved on, and that other place is where you're probably going to be doing the same work that we're doing. I want you to do it better. I want you to build on what we have. And while we're still here, I want you to insist that we assist you, that we work with you, draw upon us, and challenge us when we make our mistakes, which we will do too, and learn from them with us. That's what I tell my students. That's what I'm telling you. And thank God you're here.
So in the end, it's not us who is going to save this planet. It's them.
Hey,